Francois to share right now.
Absolutely. I think the important thing for me was even before the M5 group sort of started taking shape, is I knew that I needed to have other men that I can walk with, that I can trust, that can hear from the Lord, and that ultimately that I also respect, for cover. Because as these military guys would know better than the rest of us, but the idea of providing cover is that when you're making tactical maneuvers, you get yourself into a position where you're in a good position, and then you make sure you're fortified. You got good cover there, and you have good angles to shoot at, and then someone else might need to move up to a next position, which makes him vulnerable at that point. So the whole idea of guys actually working together is when there are times in your life that you become vulnerable and that you are at risk, and there are times that you're in a stronger place. And the fact that if we're working together and covering and sharing each other's burdens, we can equalize that up. We can become that cover to watch each other's back as we go. And a friend of mine shared this the other one of my Hudrite friends that I prayed with. He said, our process of transformation comes not from the path of ease, but from uphill climbs, raging storms, and enemy opposition. It comes from engaging our faith when our circumstances speak a contrary message. And so, as you start walking and actively becoming a threat to the enemy, when you actively start making a difference, and the Lord's calling you to do stuff, the enemy will come against you. And I believe the Lord designed it in such a way that it's not for us to do this alone. I believe he designed it for us, that's why he actually built a team of disciples. What's fascinating is how he said it's done before he goes to the cross, that I have taught them everything that you taught me to teach them. And then he says, you guys now love each other. That is part of the gospel. A huge part of the gospel is that we walk things out together, that we're willing to essentially lay down your life, because greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friend, And so for me personally, I've been going through some things that are harder, just because of the journey that the Lord has with me, and he really needed to purify a bunch of stuff out of me. And what he's called me to walk in caused the enemy to rise up pretty strong. And I think to me, it's an essential ingredient to be able to reach out to these guys and say, okay, I just need some cover right now, guys. And the Lord is speaking to them just to have that different angle. I don't want to take too much time, but I want to share this short story with you. When I was diving in South Africa, from the coast, I would actually jump on the rocks and then would snorkel out there and spearfish and whatnot. At some stage, I got caught in a rip current, and the waves were busy slamming me against the rocks. Now, I had a nice wetsuit on, else I would be ripped to shreds. That was just blessing from the Lord. But I had a nice thick 5mm wetsuit on, and every time that the wave was pushing me up and slamming against this rock with all these barnacles and stuff, and it was literally scraping me down every time. Every time I thought, this time I'm going to be able to just grab on and be able to pull myself out. Until eventually I was so exhausted, I got to a point where I realized I could actually die now. Whatever decision I make now, I could die. And in that moment, I dropped my weight belt. But in that moment, I looked and I saw my dad standing on the side of the rocks. And he was looking at me. He was like, what are you doing? Because where he was standing, he could clearly see that if I just swam out a little further in the rip current, then it will push me out into the next lane. But because I got so focused and I got so tunnel visioned on trying to do this thing, and it wasn't working, I didn't have that second angle. So the Lord taught me a very important lesson that day in understanding that it's not that my dad's a better swimmer than me. It's not that I don't understand rip currents. Okay. But just in the position that he was in, the Lord could use him to just see what I couldn't see from that place. Yeah. And I did survive. So anyhow, that's how it is for me. And yeah, I hope that's a blessing for you guys.
Thanks, Francois.